Sai Ram, and welcome to our studios. This is the studio of Radio Sai, Prashanti Digital Studio as it's called. It's a great moment for me because never in my life did I ever dream that I would be interviewing a personality like you. So for the benefit of the listeners, I should say, though you are not the original Little Master as you mentioned during the Unity Cup match, you were a Little Master at one time. But you remain a master, but you seem to be getting into the middle age if I see you. Am I right?
Sai
Slightly more than little, shall I say?
Sai Ram, yes, definitely. I think age waits for nobody, so I think, definitely past my youth, and middle age is where I am, I would think.
But let me tell you that passing the youth is only as far as your physical body is concerned. You are so youthful in spirit and so inspiring. We want you to inspire all our listeners all over the world. So let me first of all ask you a question which I don't normally ask. Normally I ask people, when did you first come to Swami and stuff like that. But I want to ask you this question. In your career, you have been interviewed 1,000,000 times, and you have interviewed I don't know how many times. How does it feel to sit here and chat over Radio Sai? This is an experience I think you would have dreamt of. How does it feel?
I think it is something, which is beyond description, because the very fact that one comes to Prashanti Nilayam and finds a peace which eludes you outside the Prashanti Nilayam, to be perfectly honest, when you go out of Prashanti Nilayam back to the city, and then from there to wherever one's tour takes you, there is a hustle, a bustle, the hurly-burly of everything, everyday life, which does not actually give you the kind of peace that you're looking for. There's always some pressure, but coming down here is, it brings a great deal of peace, and I can feel the peace even over here. Normally, irrespective of the number of interviews that one might have done, there is a certain feeling of nervousness when you do an interview. But that nervousness is simply not there when I'm here, because I'm very close here. Swami is in Prashanti Nilayam. I just feel that he's around here.
That's very nice. We all, there's some sort of a magic in the air that grips you and squeezes out all your anxiety and worries, and you feel pretty relaxed. That's really nice. Which means you should be coming here more often.
Yes, I would.
So why don't you arrange your tour so that you pass via Bangalore, and then, we are just a little hop away from Bangalore.
Yes, I would dearly love to do that. And I hope that, Swami also organizes it in such a way, because, he is perfectly capable of organizing that.
That's true. Which brings me to my standard opening question for celebrities, which is, how did you happen to come to Swami? In fact, it is valid for every single individual, because in his own way he pulls the strings and brings us to his fold at the right time, in the right manner, though we are not conscious of it. How did it happen? Because in your case, you must have been very busy then in a different role, out playing in the field. Now you are traveling and going behind the players, watching what they are doing. So in the midst of all that bustle and, stress, how did you happen to come to Swami?
Well, it actually all started with my mother getting a vision of Swami.
I see.
Yes.
When was that?
This was in 1970, when she was cooking, and suddenly she got a vision of Swami. And
when you say vision, that means she saw him in person or something like that?
No, she saw, something like that in the kitchen where she was cooking, and she suddenly...
That's in Bombay.
That's in Mumbai. And she actually suddenly got very, excited about it. And she stopped all cooking and went just down the road where the newspaper stall is to ask for the poster. And the miraculous part about it is that the newspaper wala had a lot of posters, but none of Swami. So he showed all the posters to her, and she couldn't find Swami's poster. So
was she able to place him?
No, she wasn't. She didn't know who Swami was at that stage. She'd just seen the vision. So the newspaper wala pointed her to another shop a little further down. She went there, looked. There were no posters of the visions she had seen. So she came back to this original newspaper wala who used to supply us with our daily newspapers.
In which area of Bombay?
In Dadar, Bhalchandar Road. And she said, please look again. Please look again. So the newspaper wala said, I just showed you about 10 minutes ago. It's not there. How can it be? She said, please look again. And lo and behold, right at the bottom was the poster of Swami in exactly the same vision with his hand upraised.
Abhaya Hasta.
Was there. And so the newspaper wala gave the poster to her, and she said, well, how much? And he said, look, this poster, I don't know how it has come here. I will not charge you a penny because I have not ordered it. So this poster is here and it is yours. And so that poster was then kept in my bedroom. And I think since that poster was put up in my bedroom, my cricketing fortunes started to soar. I was till then just a Ranji Trophy player and, an okay Ranji Trophy player. But my fortunes just started to soar from there. So along with my mother and my father, even I started, to get mentally and spiritually involved with Swami from there.
Your story is absolutely amazing because I don't know whether you're aware of Mr. Sinclair of America. He had a almost similar experience. It has been recorded by him personally. Swami came to him 2 or 3 times in his prayer room and he didn't know who he was. Then he went to the biggest bookshop in America, New York City, which sells spiritual books. And he says, I want a book on somebody who looks like this. That man smiled and came back with a book on Swami and a Vibhuti packet. It turns out he was a devotee. Imagine that in New York, Scribner's or somebody. Huh. And then he found out where Puttaparthi was and he came. And he saw Swami. It was exactly like the person whom he had seen in his house in America, in Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken, at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Amazing. Quite amazing.
So there are extraordinary ways in which Bhagawan comes into the lives of people. I heard a story from Mr. Tajmul Hussain of West Indies, Trinidad. He told me of a man, an Afro-West Indian, shall I say, who did not know anything about Swami, not one word. He was a rich man, but he was in financial difficulties. He was driving very fast in his Mercedes. He wanted to crash and die. And as he was speeding, he heard a voice, come to Prashanti. He didn't know a damn thing about what was going on. He thought he was imagining. 3 times he heard. Then he slowed down. Said, there is something, I'm getting a message, let me find out. He asked around and after some time found out what Prashanti was, where it was, why, what was important about it. Came here, was saved by Swami forever. Yes. So it's astonishing that you were brought into the fold of Swami in this way. Of course, he has got his own ways of bringing people. The next question is, what impact do you think Swami has made on your life? This is very important for our young people. Well, and all of us too.
The impact is definitely in the sense that he has guided me. He has guided me right throughout my cricketing career.
In what way?
There have been decisions that have been very hard to take. Decisions regarding certain aspects of the game which were very difficult, like for example when the captaincy of the Indian team, which is such a prestigious post, was going back and forth, and I was getting a little frustrated by it. Yes. Frustrated because it was affecting my individual game, my personal game, because of all the hoopla that is surrounding the captaincy. And it was at that stage, there was a calming voice that said to me, accept what you get. And
this was an inner voice.
It was an inner voice which just said to me, accept what you get. This was in a way while I was saying my morning prayers. And I have to say that I've had a standard prayer since I was a school boy. It's been virtually the same things that I say. I was brought up to study in a Jesuit school. So there was a prayer to God, and it's been the standard prayer which I've been saying for years now. And
you don't miss it even in your travels?
I don't miss it.
Fantastic.
Even
That's
during
amazing.
every morning immediately
so
after.
literally, as Swami says, you start the day with God.
I start the day
Fantastic.
with God, yes. Even today, my first thing when I wake up is to touch the feet of Swami's photograph, which is by my bedside, and take his blessing. That is, when I wake up, when my eyes open, I want to see Swami's face
marvelous.
first.
Incidentally, if I may do a little bit of a commercial, if you go outside, we have a big board announcing Radio Sai Global Harmony, and we say, start the day with God, tuned to SGH. But even without our commercial, you have been doing it for a long time, and you have seen the personal benefit of prayer and keeping God in your radar screen.
Yes.
That's wonderful. And the more important thing is, He is always there every single day. You begin the day with God. What a wonderful thing to know. Now, you say Swami has guided you in all your decision-making and major turning points and so on and so forth. Do you know of other players who have felt the hand of God and the guiding influence of God, say in cricket?
Yes, I think there is my brother-in-law, Gundappa Vishwanath.
Oh, yes, of course, he comes here often.
He has found Swami's guiding hand. Even he went, like all of us in cricket, go through rough patches in our cricketing careers when nothing seems to be going right. But that is there for everybody. And it is at this time that there is a sense of frustration that builds up, and this is where I think Swami's guiding hand has come, because the tendency at such a time is to throw in the towel and to quit, to say I don't want to play anymore. And although you might still have a few more years left of good active playing days, but you tend to sort of get frustrated, and it's over here. I think Vishy also was going through a rough patch as a batsman, and there was a lot of pressure on him to be omitted from the team. And it was around this time that Swami came to his help, and then after that he I think he came down here, if I'm not mistaken. And when he went back, he scored 100, then a double 100, and just didn't look back.
Maybe you should tell it to our players. Score a century. Yeah. Of course, it may be very difficult if you're in West Indies to fly over and have a darshan and go back. But that's very nice. Which brings me to a very important matter, namely cricket and character building. I raise this point with a lot of interest, because when I was in school, there was this famous poem. I don't remember the poem, but I remember the last word, play up, and play up the game. And we were taught, or told rather, how the leaders of England were shaped on the playing fields of Eton and Harrow. And I do remember in my living memory of earlier years of great discipline, decorum, dignity on the sports field, and I would say also display of character. I mean, we have heard of, you must have seen him, I only heard of him, of Frank Chester, the great umpire, and how people accepted the umpire's verdict without question, and how there were shows of sportsmanship and so on and so forth. And cricket was a game that was associated with character, but somehow we seem to have moved rapidly away from it. Why on earth did this happen? I
think it is to a great extent the commercialization of the game that has caused some of the players, not all the players, some of the players to lose sight of the fact that this is a game, and this game has got some great traditions. And also, of course, the motto of winning at all costs. Cricket is, as you very rightly said, a tremendous character builder, because as a batsman, you cannot score a century unless there is somebody at the other end to bat with you. Absolutely. Somebody at the other end who might actually take a few overs of some very good bowling from a bowler who you as a batsman might not want to face or you are uncomfortable against. So it might be that the partner might score only 25 runs or 29 runs, but in that 29 runs he has helped you to overcome a tough period and go on to a century. And similarly, I think as a bowler, you can't get wickets unless there are fielders taking catches for you, or stopping runs, putting pressure on the batsman by stopping runs, not giving away easy runs. So I think it also teaches you cricket apart from anything else. I suppose it builds team spirit. Team spirit, and it also teaches you to live in a society with all its inequalities, that society has not been equal. There are some more fortunate than the others.
Absolutely.
And I think it reflects in many ways in the skill level of the player. There could be somebody who is tremendously skilled, but he cannot get 100 or he cannot get 5 wickets unless there is a slightly lesser skilled player who is helping him.
All are needed.
And sometimes the greater skilled player has to look after the lesser skilled player, and that is what society also teaches us, that those who are more fortunate should be looking after the lesser fortunate. So in a sense, I would imagine that cricket is a great reflection of society.
And I suppose character brings out also element of courage.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, it does, because there are times when things are not going well for you and for your team, and it is in situations like this how you cope up with it, how you fight back, how you bide your time till the tough period is the hard period is gone, and then capitalize on it, and then go on to either score runs or take wickets. That is a great character builder.
Talking of character, I must tell our listeners here because it's very important. You might not have heard this, and it might also interest you. I vividly remember Prasanna, whom you have played with.
Yes.
Once telling me on the veranda many years ago, we were somehow talking about you, and he said, look, people don't understand that Gavaskar played with the county cap, our national cap, which people were very proud to wear then, not the kind of helmets that he have. And he scored 10,000 runs, test runs, against the great fast bowlers of the world. And whom did he have to face in India? Lousy pitchers and bowlers like me. And in spite of that, he scored. That is character, he said. So I will never forget that. There was a sort of power in that statement. The kind of determination, resoluteness, and all that sort of thing, which really made a deep impression on me, to the point that I'm able to recall that off the cuff.
Yes, he told me that also once.
Did he?
He mentioned something, and I said to him, the only reason I did not wear a helmet was because there was nothing to protect inside. Which reminds me of a little joke which I must share with you and the listeners. There was a great erudite judge, Mr. A.S.P. Iyer. He was in the bench in Madras High Court before independence, and there were Britishers in those days, legal luminaries. And Mr. Iyer was a very witty man, and he was having a conversation with his British judge. And this British judge said, Mr. Iyer, I don't believe in God. It's all nonsense. It's a make-believe. This man has said, why, Mr. Smith or Jones or whatever his name was? He said, look, I can't see God. How can I believe in him? And Mr. Iyer was quick to respond. He said, Mr. Smith, I can't see your brain. Am I to presume you don't have one? I thought that was a devastating statement. We don't know what happened to Mr. Smith afterwards. He probably went back to England. Talking of character and a great personality, I would like to mention at this point Vijay Merchant. Yes.
I've seen him at close quarters only once. That was in 1948 or 49, I don't remember, in Madras Airport after the West Indies test. That was the first test match I ever saw. Everton Weekes missed his century by 10 runs. He was scoring centuries, 5 centuries or so he had scored consecutively. He was run out, I think, and Stallmeyer and Goddard put up a huge score. And my father used to work in the airport, and he took me to the airport to see these players take off. The Indians and the West Indies left more or less at the same time. And I saw Merchant once. But he always impressed me as a man of great character. And I still remember 1954 or 55, I don't remember the year. The New Zealand team visited India for the first time, and they played in Brisbane Stadium. And he used to broadcast a day's summary at 9:15 after the All India Radio News. We didn't have tapes in those days. And I used to hear him. I was living in Santa Cruz at the time. And that day they got out, I think, this left-handed batsman, Donnelly, am I right?
Yes, Martin Donnelly, yes.
They just couldn't get him out, and in the East Stand they went on blasting atom bombs, and his concentration was destroyed, and he got out. Merchant was very severe on the audience. He said, spectators rather. He said, I feel ashamed to call myself an Indian. Is this the way to treat a guest? There he was giving a fantastic display of batsmanship. Our youngsters should have watched it, this and that. And I used to follow news about Vijay Merchant now and then. and his service to the community. And I was deeply impressed about his personal discipline. 1946, he went to England under the Nawab of Pataudi Senior. That was one of the wettest summers. And those days, the tours used to be long, as you know, start in Worcestershire and go on for 3 months. He scored 7 centuries.
Yes.
Tremendous. So, have you met him? Have you talked to him?
Oh, yes.
You must have, naturally.
Oh, yes.
And would you like to tell us something about this man, great man?
Yes.
Because he is one of the legends as far as India is concerned in character, discipline.
Oh, absolutely.
I salute him.
Oh, absolutely. I think he was, according to those who have seen Indian cricket from 1932, according to them, he was India's most technically accomplished batsman. And
I've seen him a few times.
Yes.
There is no doubt about that.
Yes, and the closest after that really has been Sachin Tendulkar in terms of technical perfection. I think that's what those the connoisseurs of the game who have watched the game for such a long time say. But the late Vijay Bhai said that his second innings in life was better than his first innings, which was as a cricketer. The second innings in life was, as you said, service to community. He was head of the National Association of Blind. He was a great philanthropist. He did plenty of charity work. And he cherished that innings, that part of his life, much more than his cricketing part. As a cricketer, he was an inspiration, because I grew up hearing stories about Vijay Merchant, Vijay Hazare, Polly Umrigar, Vijay Manjrekar, and these were inspirational figures to all of us, particularly Vijay Merchant and Vijay Hazare, because they used to score not just hundreds, they used to score double hundreds and triple hundreds, much in the manner of Sir Don Bradman. And because they were Indians, they were far more inspirational than, say, Sir Don Bradman, who, of course, was the greatest, middle-order batsman that the world has seen. And being a Mumbaiite, I did interact with the late Vijay Bhai quite a few times. My uncle Madhav Mantri, my maternal uncle.
Mantri was your uncle?
Yes, my mother's elder brother. He had played for India for about four test matches. So because of that, I would
If I'm not mistaken, he used to open with K.C. Ibrahim.
Correct. That is right. For Mumbai. That is absolutely right. So I had the occasion to meet up with Vijay Merchant, and it was always fascinating to hear him talk about the game of cricket. Though, of course, at that stage he was more into his second innings, which was more of charity work. But he was the one who actually picked me for the tour to the West Indies in 1971, although I hadn't played enough of first-class cricket by that time. I just played, I think, half a dozen first-class matches maybe. But he was the one who said that I should be picked. And most importantly, on the eve of the tour, when he met all of us, because he was the chairman of the Indian selection committee then, and he met the entire team before departure. And at that meeting, where he was telling us what he expected of the team in terms of performance, etc., how he would expect us to conduct ourselves off the field. After that, he turned around and said to everybody, and I was a baby of the team, I was the youngest member of the team. He says, I wouldn't be surprised if Sunil comes back as the best batsman of the tour. Now that was certainly, to hear India's greatest batsman say something like that was a bit of a jolt. And fortunately, more than putting pressure on me, it just inspired me. It just inspired me that those words coming from India's greatest batsman, that he expected me to be a success on this particular tour, was, in many cases, it would be like putting pressure on somebody. But in this case, it just inspired me. It just made me believe in myself.
This prompts me to ask a very interesting question. There are always people who inspire. But it looks like the nature of the people who inspire seems to have changed. In those days, they were great, not only in terms of professional ability, they had great character and discipline. I mean, anybody whom you admired inevitably had those things. But these days people seem to admire. I don't. People who are, rich or famous or whatever, but lack the fundamental foundation, namely character. Yes. Is that true, or am I just...
Not entirely true. I think there are sometimes, wrong conceptions. There are misconceptions about some people. But generally, you will find, at least at the sport in the sporting arena, there's a lot of hard work that goes behind a success story. Success doesn't come easily. There are lots of sacrifices which a sports person makes, which are not generally seen by the public. And because, particularly in cricket, because cricket has got a lot of commercial advantages over other sports, because the spin-offs are there, spin-offs in terms of endorsement opportunities and fees, etc., that come through, and the standard of living of a particular person improves. I think that is perhaps noticed more than the hard work and sacrifices that went into getting to that success level earlier on, which were done, particularly unnoticed because the person wasn't as well known as he was after his success.
True, but ultimately, sacrifice is there, obviously, otherwise you don't rise to the top. But there are certain manifestations of behavior on the field which make you ache for the old days.
Yes.
These things didn't happen.
Yes, I think it is, as I said earlier on, it is
baiting the umpire
yes,
and trying to psychologically damage the coolness of the...
Yes.
If you want to dislodge a batsman, bowl well at
Correct. Correct. That is exactly what I keep saying. I mean, recently I had the occasion to deliver the Spirit of Cricket lecture at Lord's in London. And I did emphasize on this particular point.
To whom did you deliver the lecture, if
I delivered it to MCC, the Marylebone Cricket Club.
The MCC
at Lord's,
itself.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So at Lord's in London. And I emphasized on this point that there has always been a bit of chat in the game of cricket. But it's invariably been good-humored and light-hearted. And even the recipient of it, supposing I'm a bowler and you're a batsman and you've played and missed. As a bowler, I would sometimes say, what did you eat for breakfast today? Because you were lucky or your catch is dropped. And something like that. But it was always light-hearted. What has happened, unfortunately, is that in the modern world where winning at all costs has become the be-all and end-all, I think this particular sense of humor is gone. Now there is personal abuse, and that is what I have been. I spoke about in my lecture that by all means play the game hard. It has always been a hard game. It has been a game where it's been played with a hard ball, which can hurt when it hits you in the ribs or it hits you in the gloves.
As Nari contractor discovered.
Yes. And but it has always been played fair. And I give the example of the West Indian fast bowlers. West Indian fast bowlers have been fearsome, but they've never said a word. They've never said a word to the opponent. They've just gone on with the business. Okay, they've given you a glare, they've given you a stare, which is perfectly all right because they want to put the fear into you, but they've never abused you. And they've taken 300, 400, 500 wickets in Test cricket. So I don't see the reason why others should resort to personal abuse. A little bit of chat, fine. I have no problems with, good-humored chat, but not personal abuse.
I'm very glad that your remarks about the way you play the game reminds me of the observation you made at the conclusion of the Unity Cup match, to which we shall come presently. You said, in any game there are winners and losers, but at the end of the day, what matters is how you played the game.
Yes.
I won't forget that.
Yes.
That's really very important. That somehow seems to have gone out of the business, both from the point of view of spectators and also the players. And talking of great personalities, inevitably I have to come to Don Bradman, who for all of us would remain Don. Yes. In spite of you with all your centuries, yes. You are, shall I say, number 2 in the list. Don is Don. I am sure it is so for you because I have seen a lot of his books in your house. Yes. Did you ever meet him?
Oh, yes.
Very nice. Why don't you tell us about that?
I met him first in 1971 when I was part of the Rest of the World team. The South Africa tour to Australia was cancelled because of South Africa's apartheid policies then. So it was Sir Don Bradman as the chairman of the Australian Cricket Board who actually organized the Rest of the World team to come and play in Australia.
Oh, I see.
So he picked me in that Rest of the World squad, and I had the occasion to meet him several times on that tour because he was traveling for every match. There was one memorable instance when in those days, of course, there weren't those aero bridges, so you got off on the tarmac when you did not go directly into the arrival lounge. You got off onto the tarmac. And we had actually got off on the tarmac because Australia being a big country, the plane was not big enough to carry us from one place to another place. So we were like hopping. It was a hopping flight. And we had got off at Adelaide, and he came to see us at Adelaide. He came to see the rest of the world team on our way to Melbourne. And he saw me. He was talking to Sir Garfield Sobers, who he was extremely fond of. And Sir Garfield Sobers was the captain of our team. Then he greeted him, and then he said, "Where is that little fellow from Mumbai? From Bombay. Where is that little fellow from Bombay? I want to see him." And he came round and he introduced himself, and I was, absolutely flabbergasted to, meet him. That was the first time I met him. And he was asking me about, how things were and all that. And suddenly Sir Garfield Sobers saw us. And he came, and Sir Don Bradman wasn't very tall. He was, I think, 5'6" or 5'7" at the most. And he came around and he saw us, in a little sort of away from the rest of the group talking. And he said, Sir Garfield Sobers said, "Hey, you little fellows, you must always get together, is it?" And to which Sir Don Bradman, quietly turned to me and said, "These big fellows might have the power, but we little fellows have the footwork."
Fantastic. It's amazing. Yeah. So I think that's a great story. Now, what was it about Bradman that impressed you most, apart from his legendary scores?
I think
as an individual,
I think straight away when you met him, you realized the passion he had for the game, and for all the aspects of the game. He was passionate about the game being more important than the individual. He was very, very concerned, even at that stage, that there were certain aspects of Australian cricket which were degenerating a little bit. So he was a little bit concerned at that stage, but. His passion for the game, his passion for the development of the game is, and his interest in players from different countries.
Do you know anything about his sort of, attitude to discipline?
No, unfortunately, I didn't.
There are a few things, which impressed me to the extent I can recall from his book, which he wrote when he retired. I don't remember the title, but a few things there impressed me. I think their team went to England in 1948, if I'm not mistaken. That was the last time he toured. And the trip was made by ship. It was not by air. Yes. And apparently he made sure that Lindwall and Miller shared a cabin in the same room in the ship. He said they should know each other very well. So it takes about 15 days or so to go to
from Australia.
That was one thing that struck me. I mean, he doesn't leave anything to chance. And some critics said that he didn't even allow the players a free hand in T.N. Pierce's 11, which is supposed to be a festival match. I must win every match. Okay, that's a bit hard. But discipline and thorough planning, professionalism. The other thing that impressed me was he forbade the Australians from playing golf, which of course they hated. Apparently he said golf encourages cross-bat shots. I don't know what so as a cricketer, I'm sure you would appreciate that much more than I would. But I like the sort of thoroughness of planning.
Yes.
And then the other thing I remember is he made people sign names on lots of slips. And he said, when we travel, there'll be a lot of requests for autographs. In ship, you have a lot of time. Just spend it doing this. And one more thing he said was, Tour of England is very strenuous. We have no time, and we have to make a lot of speeches. And he knew all the counties, Leicestershire, this shire, Middlesex, whatever. And as the captain of the visiting team, he was supposed to make speeches. So he made notes for all of them. And kept them so that, when that occasion arose, he didn't have to stand on his feet and scratch his head and say, no, what am I going to say now? I was just amazed. And another thing which really taught me about his discipline is he said if he was not out at lunch, he would come 15 minutes before, sit in the ground and get his eyes used to the light. He said most people get out after lunch for the simple reason they come out from a dark lunchroom and then their eyes are not able to adjust. I was just amazed. My God, this man is so thorough.
Yes, I understand he was a terrific speaker, after dinner speeches.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. In those days, there used to be virtually a function, a dinner, in every county you played. It's not the case now. I think nowadays you possibly have at the most 2 official functions, one by the host association, which is either if you're touring England, it'll be by the England and Wales Cricket Board, and one by MCC. And if you're traveling Australia, it'll be by the Australian Cricket Board. Then there might be one function by the Indian High Commissioner. But the functions have gone down. In any case, nowadays it's the manager who does the speaking, not the captain. So he was apparently a wonderful speaker, and you're right about the getting the eyes adjusted to the light factor. It is such an important part, because dressing rooms are dark, and from the dark, and in England particularly, the light has not always been as bright as over here in India. So it did make a difference in getting used to the. What
I admired was all this reflect his commitment, his passion,
Correct.
his deep involvement. Those are very necessary.
Yes, and while in the evening after the game was over, while everybody else was apparently down in the bar or in a club, he would be sitting in his room and listening to a gramophone record.
Yes, that I heard.
Just listening to some classical music on the gramophone record.
So now I want to come to the great event which you organized, which is almost one-off. It belongs to the last century, in a manner of speaking, in which I played a peripheral role. I was so happy to. This is the Unity Cup, great Unity Cup match. Tell us all you know about it, because I watched it from the side for a long time in the veranda.
Well, it was. I have to say, it was a real privilege. How
did it all start?
I think Swami, in one of his interactions, said that he wanted to spread the message of brotherhood and unity amongst everybody in the world through sport. And because cricket is such a big game in our country and in our part of the world, he wanted to have a cricket match. And once Swami gave the go-ahead for the match, then the preparation started right from making sure that the ground was in tip-top condition, because
we had no ground. Yes,
there was no ground. So everything had to be done from scratch virtually. Swami was more keen to see that the pitch was a good pitch, simply because he did not want any injuries, because if the quality of the pitch is not good, then the quality of the game is not going to be good. So I think Prasanna was put in charge of making sure that the pitch and the outfield was good. And I was given the responsibility of making sure that the players were invited. I think Swami was particularly keen to have players from all over the world, particularly Pakistan. And it was when I did approach the Pakistan players, in order to make sure that there was no last-minute confusion because of the fact that they believe in Islam. I just explained to them that you are coming to a place which looks after all religions, really. There is no particular religion which and they were happy to come. And we had 4 Pakistani players, current players coming, and we had 2 former Pakistani players.
Yes, I remember. Zahir Abbas and Hanif Muhammad, whom you introduced as the original Little Master. I won't forget that one. And what surprised me was, of course, he's jumping the gun a bit. Hanif got up and said a few words which was not in the scheduled program. He was not a scheduled speaker, at least according to what we knew. That's right.
So those were my responsibilities to ensure that we had a proper World 11. Also the fact that Arjuna Ranatunga also is a devotee of Swami.
He comes often.
He comes often here. Was a big help. He was helpful in getting some of the Sri Lankan players. And Kalicharan was there. And from the Indian side, Sachin Tendulkar was the captain of the Indian team then. And he was very keen to play this game, very, very eager to come down and play. And also,
we have a photo of Swami talking intimately to Sachin with a hand on
I will tell you in a short while about what Sachin wanted to know also at that stage. But Sachin was very keen to play this game. And so that's how the match materialized. But, we all think that we have
memorable experience associated with that match which you would like to share with us?
Yes, that is, the one is really concerning Sachin Tendulkar, because Sachin at that stage was under pressure as far as his captaincy was concerned. there was a lot of talk that it was affecting his batting, and so he wanted to actually ask Swami what he should do, whether he should carry on with the captaincy or not. So
just as you had problems with captaincy.
Yes, and he kept telling me, can I just meet Swami for 2 minutes? Can I meet Swami for 2 minutes? And I said, I will certainly try and see if Swami speak to Swami if I get the chance. And so he went out to field, but he was, after every 2 deliveries, he was looking back because Swami was sitting there to see if there was any signal from me that, and I had actually, when I managed to get the opportunity to speak to Swami, I said, Swami, Sachin wants to come and speak with you for some time. So Swami said, wait, because Swami also realized that he can't suddenly ask the Indian captain from the field to come out. So at the drinks interval, when there was a drinks interval, that's when Swami said, now you can ask him, because then, it was without any interruption of play. So then Sachin came, there was a substitute who went there, and then Sachin came and sat next to Swami, and I think he had a chat with Swami, where Swami again said, I believe that don't worry, I am with you. In whatever you do, I am with you. Don't worry. And everybody over there who was present at the match remembers Swami patting him on the back and encouraging him. And we all know the fantastic season Sachin had after that.
My most memorable memory, I had a lot of anxious memories. I won't tax you with them, and I think listeners ought not to know about them. But one very pleasant memory I carry is a conversation I had with Zahir Abbas during lunchtime. I was the Vice Chancellor at that time, and I had to make sure we played the host properly. And Zahir was tremendously impressed with the way our boys were taking care of the guests. So he asked me a lot of questions about our institute and the way we train our boys. And I was very proud. It was my proudest moment because, you feel proud when your boys get praised. And they did a fantastic job. In fact, I felt very miserable that day because I couldn't see the game. I hadn't seen a cricket match for donkey's years, and here was a great game taking place, and I was running around all the time. I couldn't see it. I felt miserable. Then I found I was not alone. 1,000 boys were feeling miserable because they couldn't see the game, but they didn't show it, whereas I showed it. They were all doing their duty. It was wonderful. It was absolutely marvelous.
It was very well organized. The cricket board officials were also here. And in fact, one of the suggestions made at that stage was to the cricket board was, just like all over the world, they have a tour opener. Like in Australia, when you go, there is a match played near Western Australia. It's a one-day game that is played in Western Australia. In England, there is the game played at Arundel Castle, which is the tour opener. In South Africa, there is a game played used to be played at Nicky Oppenheimer's ground. Similarly, that maybe whenever touring teams come to India, they should come and play a tour opener here at Puttaparthi, but it was really left to Swami. Only if Swami okayed it would that happen.
Who knows, but we do look forward to the day when cricket would have more character and less of commercialism. And I do hope the speech you made at Lord's would make its impact, and we would return at least partially to the good old days. So before we sign off, I would like to recall what you mentioned at the time when Swami awarded the cup to Sachin Tendulkar, and you said, if I remember correctly, Sachin has exceeded his performance on the ground by a great weightlifting performance, because the cup was so heavy. Words roughly to that extent. And I was also impressed with Clive Lloyd's speech. He said, talent is a gift of God and we must offer it back to God. I was just stunned. I've quoted it any number of times to my students. He said, look, this is a sentence right from Bhagavad Gita. This man has never heard it, but he's able to say it because God is in his heart, just as he is in the heart of everyone. And many years ago, I was speaking in Trai Vrindavan. Swami asked me to say something to the students, and I recall this particular incident, and he said, talent is a gift of God. And Swami said, stop. He looked at me straight and said, talent is not a gift of God. He said, oh my God, what did I do wrong? This is what he says in the Gita. Swami stared at me and said, talent is God. He said, that goes to a still higher level. Talent is a manifestation of God. And then I remembered what Krishna says, I think in the 10th chapter. He says, among the senses, I am the mind. So mind is God. The power of mind is God, because with the mind you do fantastic things. We just don't spend 2 minutes thinking about all the things that the human beings have done. And it's all the power of mind. So the power of God is encoded, and when it manifests, it's really the manifestation of the power of God. If only we think about it that way, life would turn around to better days. So my request to you, sir, is that you please do advise our younger people as much as you can about the value of sports as a builder of character, as Clive Lloyd said. And I would let you have the last word by telling something to our young listeners particularly about reaching God through sport. But before that, I must tell you something. I forget his name. He was Olympic champion, pole vault champion, way back in the 1948 London Olympics or so. I think his first name is Bob. I saw him in Mysore. He had become a preacher by then, and he was giving pole vault demonstration. And he said, I've been described as the only preacher who is trying to go to heaven on the strength of his own jumping. So why don't you tell our young listeners something about what you would like them to do, how to follow Swami, and through the medium of sport develop their personality and character. Over to you, sir.
Yes, I think sport, of course, is something where you want to be a winner all the time, but it also teaches you to lose. If it doesn't teach you how to lose or how to accept defeat, then you are the biggest loser. I think you learn to win with humility, learn to win with grace, and accept defeat with humility, with a desire to improve and make yourself a winner the next time that you are playing. But most importantly, if you play the sport as it is meant to be played, then whether you win or lose, it really will not matter to you, so long as you know that in your heart of hearts that you have given off your best. It is not a question of an individual's ego, but it's a question of trying to do the best that one has inherited in as much as talent and skill go. Sport teaches you, quite frankly, what is right and what is wrong. In cricket, for example, there is that word there's that term called, it's not cricket, which is so important when it's been used in everyday life as well. And which actually tells you what the game of cricket used to be in the old days. It still is possible to come back to that. We are not too far away. We have gone a bit away from that, but I think it's possible to get to that. And remember, at the end of it all, that whatever one achieves on the field of sport, whether it's an indoor sport or an outdoor sport, it is only your strength of belief in one's ability, and that ability is a gift from self-confidence, and that ability, confidence, ability to think yourself out of situations that arise in sport and in life is an ability that is God-given. So do not ever forget God.
And do not ever give up. Thank you. I won't say goodbye, because I look forward to having you here again and again and again, because you're so nice to talk to, and you must be having fun of stories and incidents. But one point, next time you come, you bring Sachin Tendulkar along with you.
Yes, I will. The Indian team's schedule, unfortunately, is so tight that there is hardly any time for them. But yes, it'll be my endeavor to bring Sachin and as many of the Indian team to come down here. I know Rahul Dravid also went to seek Swami's blessings recently.
Yes, I saw him in Bangalore before he got married.
So there are any number of Indian cricketers who are Sai devotees, and Swami is there to guide them and to look after them.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you with us. Please come again.
Thank
Jai
you.
Sai Ram.
Thank you, Sai Ram.